how is it reasonable to say that the whole generation can be killed for benefiting from the meal of this wicked person? Who could tell me what was the answer? Seemingly the punishment didn't fit the crime. Because even if you want to say they ate unkosher food there, they shouldn't be killed for that. And there's evidence to say that they eat kosher food there. So what is the problem with benefiting from the meal?
The fact that they went, their vanity.
Well,
They didn't actually have to go.
Motivations,
didn't
money,
have to
property,
go.
and prestige were behind it.
They're pandering.
So that's a sin that's worthy of destruction.
They already
Well,
deserved it.
Because there was one opinion we didn't mention, that they went there going to the meal was such an affront to Hashem, because he made the meal based on the destruction of the base of Mikdash. He brought up the vessels of the base of Mikdash. But even that, should it be that everybody gets killed for that?
They want to be part of the nations, and they let go of their attachment to Hashem, if he can take care of everything for them. And that automatically goes within the Jewish people.
What'd you say?
Again,
That sounds like the mentality they went with. Why couldn't they have gone anywhere with the acknowledgement of God if they had a kosher section? But there must have been something in their mentality that they gave up on when they went to the meal.
So I'm just trying to get. I'm sorry, I'm sticking it a little bit, but that giving up of the mentality is a sin punishable by death.
They lost their faith. They gave their faith
What
to something
sin
else.
did they do that was punishable by death?
They gave up on Hashem's protection.
Okay.
We're doing something very similar with.
No, we're saying at the meal, because the Rebbe Shem Baruch says they benefited from the meal. That was enough to have them killed. There's a little conversation after he said idol worship, but he thought that was also an acceptable answer.
So, I think we said it was the Rabbi Gorenstein, because we're talking about something very similar. But it was the idea that they bought into the natural order. So,
Right.
one of them was that, okay, we're sucking up to the king, meaning we
Right.
think that we have to suck up to the king in order to ensure our survival.
So that's a sin worthy of death?
It's not a sin.
It's not a sin.
It's not a sin, but it is. But buying into the natural order then subjects you to the natural order.
There you go. So that's the whole. That's the answer of the Rebbe. Just to make it clear, what I was driving at there is that there was no sin that they did that was punishable by death, because he says that it wasn't even in the category of punishment for sin. That's not what was taking place here. It was exactly what David just said, and I think everybody was indicating it. But the point I wanted to make is that the Rebbe clearly says here, there was no sin that equals everybody dying. Because if you try and find, well, you won't find anything close to a sin that's worthy of even death, let alone the death of the whole nation. So it was something else. And that's what it was. It was like, if we take ourselves to be natural, so Hashem allows us to be natural. He wasn't punishing us. He's like, okay, nature you want to subject yourself to the natural order, so the natural order it is. So then suddenly, automatically, not that we're obligated death, it's just that we're going to die if you're one sheep among 70 wolves. It's just like sort of, that's your situation. You're going to find suddenly that you're not in a situation that you can live with.
And Hashem was taking away his protection.
Yeah, he just removed his supernatural.
So he let the decree happen rather than stop the decree.
Basically, yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Okay, good. So going into Os Daled here, Lieser Biur Ubahakdama. So to further clarify, and with a preface, Yedua Masha Amru Chazal. It's known what the sages said. The Ein Somchil Alanes. That we're not allowed to rely on a miracle. Right? This gets into the conversation that Ephraim was talking about yesterday. So what if we're really just supposed to sort of give it up to Hashem and rely 100% on our faith and this supernatural guardianship? What obligations do we have to actually do something to help ourselves? Right? Because seemingly we just got through saying if you're going to try and do something to help yourself, you're thrusting yourself into into the odds of actually taking on this enemy based on your own merits and powers, and that puts you somehow rejecting Hashem's supernatural guardianship. So how does it work exactly? What are we supposed to do? Just have faith? So on the contrary, there's a Chazal that says, do not rely on a miracle. Even though the whole thing is that we're a sheep between 70 wolves, and there's no way to get out of this thing without relying on a miracle. Nonetheless, you're not allowed to rely on a miracle. Meaning what? The Torah says, V'rechecha Hashem Elokecha b'chol asher ta'aseh. Hashem, your God, will bless you in all that you, italics, do. which means you have to do something in order to garner the blessing of Hashem. Da'av shebirchas Hashem hi ta'ashir. So here you have two verses that seem to completely contradict each other. Because even though it says it's the blessing of Hashem that makes a person rich, period, not what you do, it's totally based on the blessing of Hashem. Nonetheless, there's another verse that says that Hashem will bless you based on what you do. So which is it? So even though Hashem's blessing and only Hashem's blessing makes you rich, not what you do, mikol makom, nevertheless, ein bracha zu chala al ha'adam kasher hu yoshev bato. This blessing of Hashem, which is all from Hashem, and it's not what you do, it will not dwell on a person, it won't fall upon a person if he just sits there doing nothing. So it's like an interesting type of scenario here. Basically, it reminds me of the whole story of the counting of the Omer, where it says we count 49 levels, and then at the 50th level, we get the Torah. And the whole idea is that you can't count the 50th level, right? There's only 49 days of Sfiras HaOmer, because the idea of counting something means that you can attain it on your own. So you're counting up to 50, but you can't actually count the 50th one, right? So when you count 49, then the 50th one is given to you as a gift. But the thing is, you won't get that gift unless you count 49. So it's a kind of a paradox. You're not able to do anything to get the 50th one through your own efforts. It's completely from above. There's nothing you can do to receive it. But that gift of receiving a blessing that's beyond your level will not be granted to you unless you count 49 first. But it's not like your 49 is enough to earn you that blessing. Anyway, it's a free gift that you cannot achieve through anything you do. It comes from above. It's just that what comes from above will only be granted from above if you do something. It sounds like it's rewarded, from your efforts. Because ultimately, reward, cause and effect, is that I can do something which will, so to speak, automatically cause. Like the result of what I do is that I'm pulling strings, right? And therefore, if I pull the string, something comes down. But the thing I'm trying to get to, there's no strings that you can pull to bring it down. But even theoretically, if you count all 49 strings, and pull all 49 strings, count all 49 days, it's not enough to make this thing come out, because it's beyond your efforts entirely. That's why there is no count of the 50th day. If you could do something to count it, you would be able to count the 50th day. But it's remains something that has to be done entirely beyond your control, and period. Nonetheless, that thing which is entirely beyond your control will not be coming to you unless you do, so to speak, everything which is within your control. So it's a subtle thing. But that's exactly what he's saying here. He's saying the blessings of Hashem, you can't do anything to make yourself rich. Nothing you're going to do is going to bring down Hashem's blessings. Period. They come from above. The only thing is what? Those blessings which come from above will not be given to you from above if you just sit there and do nothing. It's a very subtle situation.
Or if you do something wrong, does that keep it from?
I guess that's what it means, sitting there and do nothing. Like if you don't make strides to make a parnassa, let's say, even though your strides in making a parnassa is not what brings you the parnassa. Because because on the contrary, you could be doing it, slaving away for 49 years and not make a parnassa. It's only the blessing of Hashem that makes you rich, period. It's just that the blessing of Hashem will only come upon a person who doesn't sit there doing nothing.
What about reading Torah all day or studying?
That's also called doing something.
Oh, right.
Exactly. It's not really commensurate on necessarily even how much you work in the field that you want to be in. It's just you have to do something.
Where are we on this?
Page 173. Fourth line down from the first paragraph. Ella mutelas alava chova la'asos davar. But rather, it's placed upon you the obligation to do something, davar ma, something, ava parnassa, so for the sake of your parnassa, asher tase. And that's how these two verses to go together. It says, one is Hashem the blessing of Hashem is in all that you do, implying you have to do something. But then the other one says it's the blessing of Hashem that makes you rich. How does it work? That the blessing of Hashem, period, will only come in if you get busy doing something. But it's not based on what you do that the blessing comes. It's just that if you don't do anything, it won't come down. Amna meidach. On the other hand, alav leida lakir. You must know. So you have to do something on one hand, but on the other hand, you have to know and recognize she'ein malachto ela asiyas kli, that your work is not even touching the strings of the parnassa. It's just making a vessel, and that's all it is. You're not actually pulling down any parnassa by making your kli. That comes from HaShem. You're just making something to hold it should it come down. It's nothing, right? Which is, you can make a kli all day. If nothing's going to come down, it's not going to help you. And this you have to know. The hainu, hishtadluso vasiyaso, eino asiba, that you're working and you're doing it is not the cause, the hagorem, hamevi umazmin lo mizono parnassa, which brings down and invites your parnassa. It's not what it is. Or you can make a kli all day and it will not automatically pull down the bracha. All you're doing is you're making a vessel for Hashem's bracha. Shabo mashpil lo hakadosh baruch hu, into this kli, God will give over mizono uparnasaso, your goods. Kolomar, which means to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ratze shemizono shel adam yislavish v'yavo b'kli hateva. This is what Baruch was saying yesterday. So I sort of cut you off. I didn't want you to give away all the secrets at once. But Hashem wants that. In other words, why does this have to happen? If in fact anything you do is not the cause of your success, so why does Hashem even ask you to get busy making vessels when basically your vessels do not draw down the parnassa? It's because Hashem wants you to be busy making vessels. This is like His desire, that His parnassa of a person should enclose itself and to come into natural means. It's a supernatural blessing, period. Right? It's something which comes from above, and it's a supernatural guardianship over a person watching you, making sure you eat your food and you're never going to go hungry. But you're only going to get that. It's conditional upon you doing what Hashem wants, which is that He wants you to act natural. It's not natural. He wants you to act natural. And therefore He says, go, make it as though like you have a job.
Act natural.
Right? Act natural. And then I'll give it to you, but you have to act natural. So you, all of a sudden, and why is that? Because He wants that this supernaturalness of God should enclose itself into natural world. V'darkei hateva, in ways of nature. V'hateva, because the nature, hu yisbarach kavu v'tivo ba'olam, He's the one who fixed it and established it in the world. In other words, obviously nature is something that He doesn't want to negate entirely. If He did, He wouldn't be busy keeping it in existence all the time. So He has a certain appreciation for this nature business. Nonetheless, if He's going to leave a Jew's parnassa to nature alone, as we said, we're sheep between 70 wolves. We're not going to do well according to nature. So He can't leave us to the nature. It's a supernatural, intervention with Hashem. But act natural. V'lechein tziva la'adam la'sos kelim teivim l'parnassa. Since He likes this nature, He wants us to preserve the nature. He tells us to make natural vessels for our parnassa. Aval guf mezono shel adam hu rak birchas Hashem. But the actual body of your parnassa, your food, your energy, your enlivening force, what comes to you literally, b'pashtus, your blessings, it's only from above. It has nothing to do with what you do. It's mamish an interesting way of looking at life.
But you have to make the right vessels. So you're
Who said you have to make the right vessels? It did not say you have to make the right vessels. You have to do something. If you sit there doing nothing, you're not going to get these blessings. But theoretically, you could do anything.
Everyone has tikkunim. The soul has tikkunim. Certain things that need to be achieved. That is the vessel.
Yeah.
If you go off and do something that is completely foreign to that, it's unlikely that the parnassa is going to come down and fill that clean.
No, not necessarily. We're going to see what the likelihood is. There is a way, so to speak, of garnering Hashem's blessing. Right now, we're just talking about making vessels. The way of garnering Hashem's blessings is also sort of in your hands, as we're going to see in a second. It has to do with doing Torah and mitzvahs. But in terms of actually the kli that's going to draw down the blessing, buy a lottery ticket. You got to do something. Maybe a lottery ticket is not enough because you only did one little thing that day. But you have to do something, but not necessarily is it clear that the thing you have to do has to be so fitting for your, so to speak, soul's tikkun and all this, that's putting, I believe according to what the Rabbi is saying here, too much emphasis on the importance of what you're doing. Because basically, it's actually not important what you're doing. It's not causing you to have the parnassa. It's just HaShem wants you to act natural. It's literally that simple. You must look like a normal human being. You have to have a job that theoretically could make sense that you could make a parnassa from this job. And if it comes down to a lottery ticket, okay, it's pretty light, but theoretically, you got some kind of a kli going there.
Some people are wealthy who will do nothing. They do nothing. Lay on the beach all day. You can't do something.
Well, they sit and do binary options all day.
No, some people are bored. They don't do anything.
But I'm saying, listen, parnassa comes from somewhere, right? So if they have money in the bank, it's making them interest, or their mommy is giving them something, or I mean, so everyone has to get their parnassa from somewhere, and it's through a natural means. Now, the truth is that this whole system we're talking about right now is only for Jews. Everybody else, they should have only the natural means, which is normal. That's what most Jews think of also is happening. It's just that it's not. Which is that, no, like even a bird, you have to go and be the early bird and get your worm. You know what I'm saying? You got to do something. Anyway, but this is an interesting conversation. Let's develop the idea a little bit more. We'll see exactly what are you supposed to be doing particularly. Mekevan shekain, so since really it's just Hashem's blessing, period, Ein makom lachshiv ha'esek kishla atzma. There's no room to give importance to your actual business in and of itself. Machashe kol ikaro eino elo kli, because the whole of it is nothing more than a vessel. It doesn't have like a real teeth to it that it can actually produce anything. Shebo shora birchas Hashem. It's only a vessel in which the blessing of Hashem resides. Ve'ikar hishtadlus. Oh, here you go. So what should you be really putting your energy in? And like you said, like the tikkun of your soul, like where does that energy belong? That you actually have a passion for things. It shouldn't be in the mechanism that makes you money, because that's like, you're fooling yourself. That's not the mechanism that makes you money. It's just making a big bowl. Your ikar hishtadlus of the Adam tzrich lios lachshir lasos es atzmo roy lebirchas Hashem. You have to be busy koshering yourself, basically, and making yourself, not your business, not your vessel, but yourself worthy of Hashem's blessing. In other words, Hashem's blessing is not a factor of how great your business model is. It's how great your business model is, like your self-business. Your blessing is only going to come. Yeah, you can do things wrong, as it were, to block your blessings. But it's not because you didn't put enough, gas in the car, so to speak. It's because you didn't put enough attention to your own righteousness, which is what makes the blessing of Hashem come into the world. That's how you draw down the light. Let's put it like in Kabbalistic terms. There's light and vessel. The light is where the energy comes from. That's like the actual energetic force into the food and your children, your health, your blessings. That's called the light. That you also can do something to bring down, but it has nothing to do with natural means. That has nothing to do with nature. That's not about, cause and effect in the natural world. It's about cause and effect in the spiritual world, which means the more holy you are, basically, the more fit for light to come down into the world. But what? So that you can block off, God forbid, your actual blessings. But what? Even if you have all the good blessings in the world, Hashem demands you make some kind of a natural kli. And when it comes to the natural kli, don't put too much emphasis in the natural vessel, because it's not really what makes the blessings come down. It's just that if they come down, you need somewhere to hold them. And that's already just dealing with your business, and therefore your approach to your business should not be that's where all your efforts is, that's where on the contrary, all your efforts should be making sure that it's kosher to the Torah 100%, because that is a way to stop the blessings from coming down. Uba'omek yoser, a step deeper, zeh shebirchas Hashem hi tashir. This, that we say, the blessing of Hashem is what makes you wealthy. Only the blessing of Hashem. Eino rak mishum shemizono shel Adam. It is, why is it the case that the blessing of Hashem only that makes you wealthy? Habalo al-yedei asakav b'darki hateva, which comes to you only through this sort of channel of your natural business. Toloi ach v'rak v'akadosh baruch hu Manhigat Teva. So it's not only that the blessing of Hashem is coming from Hashem because He is the controller of nature. In other words, obviously, it's coming from Him because He designs nature, and obviously nature is not going to give out its treasures to you unless He gives them to you because His nature is under His control. But it's more than that. Right? In other words, Ela Odzos, Ve'ikr, the main thing is that Shebnei Yisrael Einam Nasunim Me'ikara Tachas Shiltun Hanhagas HaTeva. It's rather because the Jewish people, by their very nature, are not under the domain and the domination of nature at all. This is what we are. We're in a state that our workings are not in the laws of nature. So again, let me just clarify what he's just said. There's two reasons, let's say, where you could say the whole blessing comes from Hashem, right? And it doesn't matter what you do, so to speak. One is a simple one, because basically, who are you fooling? You're going to try and eke it out of nature. You're not a dummy. God is nature. He controls nature. So how are you going to sort of like make vessels to demand the divine, blessing when basically He is the natural? So that's one thing which is also true. That there's no reason to rely on nature because anyway, God is nature. But it's actually much, much more than that. It's that there's no business of a Jew doing anything in nature, even if God is controlling it, because the God that controls nature is not the same pathway of God that deals with you. He doesn't even work through nature to conduct His business with a Jew. So it's not merely that you have to sort of have your mind on God because He's the one pulling the strings of nature. He's pulling the strings of nature for everybody else. You got to have your mind on God because those rules do not apply to you. You have your own situation that has nothing to do with the natural rules of the world. That's what a Yid really is. He comes from a different place, a completely different source. The key mavuar, bekam makomos. This is like we explain in many places. Shebnei Yisrael makablim chiyusam mishem havaya shalamayla min hateva. That where do we get our energy from? Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is by definition above nature, right? Yud Kei Vav Kei is three words and one, Haya, Hoveh, V'yihyeh, which means past, present, and future at the same time. That is by definition above the natural world, and that's the source of a Yid. Hainu shu yizbarach mashgiach umanhig es kol inyan Yisrael, which means that Hashem oversees and conducts all matters of the Jewish people, bashgacha miyuchedes, with a unique overseeing, ubanhaga nisis, and in a miraculous, non-natural fashion, she'enu mugbeles b'chukei hateva, which is not at all restricted to the rules of the rest of the world. Right? This is just the general. A Yid walks down the road, he has to know this. You're not in the game. Everything that happens to you, every person that you meet, differently than everybody else. There's two ways that Hashem basically conducts business, right? One is He contracts Himself, let's say, into the name Elohim. There's a whole perfect system of also you could just trip out on how wonderfully divine it is. It's also like with an unbelievable hashgacha pratis. Every cause and effect, it's called the Seder Ishtalshlus. Everything works to perfection. It's just a brilliance. It's like a perfect computer program, infinite miles long of just perfection. But all of that, it works by rules. Then there's another way, which is called the Orein Sof. It's beyond the Seder Ishtalshlus, beyond time, beyond space. It's just miraculous. Hashem can do whatever He wants. If Hashem wants one day, He does not have to make the sun rise and the moon rise and the plants grow when you water them. That's all He's keeping that into place. But every Yid at this table knows that Hashem has a different koach. It's called the koach of bli gevul. He can do whatever He wants. And from that place is the everyday in and out conduct of a Jew. You look like you're just like them. But everyone you meet, every business encounter you have, every little piece of Torah that comes across your plate, everything is supernaturally being ordained for you in a way which is not part of the system. Yeah? Did you have your hand up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What was the question?
Now's your chance.
What was the question?
I didn't ask any questions.
Elohim, Malakut, the realm where everything is governed by a given set of rules, and then there's above that where everything is above that, so you can have two sets of contrary rules that could happen at the same time, for example?
Yeah, for example, he gives in the footnote an example. All the rest of the world was busy having to, hoe their field, plant their seed.